Hello, everybody. Good evening. Today, I'm working on another city builder piece. So this one is a different one from last time. This is another chapter header. This is for the City Builder Platinum Edition reissue, re-edit. I don't know what you want to call it. Re-release, something like that. So this is, I'm doing a whole bunch of new chapter header images. The original release of City Builder had a bunch of classical paintings as their chapter headers, and now original illustrations for it. So this is going to be the chapter header for chapter 2 of City Builder. This is for craftsman places. So it is a dwarven weaponsmithy because City Builder is primarily supposed to be used as like an RPG world building resource. So most of the time when you think RPGs, it's usually like a fantasy setting. So that's what this is really geared toward, as a fantasy or high medieval type setting. Also, I'm doing things a little bit backwards from how I normally do inking today, because I was inking some comic pages a little earlier this evening and using my brush. So I'm actually going to do some brush work first from what I normally do. Usually I do all of this background stuff in nib first, but I mean, there's really no reason I can't do the brush first. So I've already got my brush nice and wet and inky from earlier, and I'm nice and warmed up from working on comic pages before I went live here, so I may as well hit it. Number 4, Winsor Newton, Series 7. But, oh, I was holding it out of frame. I'm a goober, sorry. Winsor Newton, Series 7. Number 4, Sable inking brush. And just kind of, it's a little bit out of frame, but I have a little piece of scrap paper over here that after I load up my brush, I just kind of hone the point back down to make sure that it's not all fat and gloppy. All right, I'm going to start with this figure closest in the foreground because I want to make sure that I don't have any of the other figure's lines kind of running over his. So I usually always start with whatever is most in the foreground and work my way back. It's wearing a glove, so I've got to get those little seam lines on there, as well as some extra little folds you wouldn't normally see on, skin. I'm trying to be careful not to drag my hand through the wet ink I just laid down there. Now, if this were just a black and white piece, I'd probably be putting a little bit more shading in this area, but this is actually going to be colored, so I don't want to overdo it with the ink work, because a lot of that shading and definition is going to come through in the color. And while I'll still put some spot blacks in the deepest shadowed areas, I'm not going to put in I'm not going to do a lot of other rendering. Oh, did I hit the camera with my head? I'm sorry. Awkward. All right, there's the other glove. I feel like there should be some more seam there. Maybe a little bit more of a definition for the bend in that thumb there. Yeah, I like that better. It looks more like it. Hopefully this is coming through for people. All right, we're going to move on to face. But I have the same kind of technique. I start with whatever is the farthest forward, whatever is closest to the picture plane. And that's usually I can make a little more ink before I go for that big swoop. I don't want to run out of ink halfway through a big stroke like that. Oh, sorry, getting out of frame a little bit there. My camera's in kind of a weird spot. I feel like I'm chasing it tonight. Right. And that is a very serious dwarf face right there. To be careful with his beard, because if you read my comic, Age of Night, then you have definitely seen how very into rendering a beard I can get. But again, this is going to be colored, so I don't really want to overdo it on the rendering. So I just need to keep this not too crazy, imply a certain amount of texture without going totally overboard and covering it in texture like I would if this were a black and white piece. I'm sticking a lot more to just what I have for pencil lines than filling the whole thing in like I would do if it were just a black and white piece. Although the very ends are going to have a little bit extra because you might notice his beard is a little bit short. And that's because he's a weaponsmith. He's working on the forge. His beard's always getting singed off. I thought that was a fun idea. Considering the number of people I personally know who have lit their beards on fire at different points, being around things that throw sparks, I thought that it seemed appropriate. I was like, well, I'm not going to cut my beard because I'm a dwarf. I'll just have a kind of burned, stubbly beard. There, I think that gets that across. I think that works. Kind of uneven, burned, stubbly beard. And down and getting some more of his apron done. Right. I think this dwarf in the front, all that's left now is his hair. Which is very sensibly pulled back in a bandana so that does not also get lit on fire. All right. So that's one dwarf. That's one dwarf is nice and inked. I see there's a human lurking and watching this. Say hi, whoever you are. I'd love to say hi in chat. I may not respond immediately if people start asking questions or chatting, but I do periodically look up to see if anyone is chatting and to also make sure that my inking is still in frame and I'm not off working in the corner here where you can't see me, which I do occasionally do. I'm sorry. I try not to. All right. It's been awful humid lately. This is taking longer than normal to dry, and I kind of need him to dry since he's over in this corner before I can work over here and not drag my hand through him. Or, well, I guess I could work on these guys because that's actually going to work out pretty well because he's down here. They're over here. So, yeah, we're going to move on over here. So we've got this, I don't know what you want to call it, conceit framing device? I don't know. We've got this thing for the chapter headers for City Builder, which we thought would be pretty neat, is that since City Builder is a whole bunch of different places that you could use for pretty much any kind of RPG campaign that you wanted, we decided to, instead of having these places just look like they're existing for the chapter headers, existing in like a vacuum without any kind of context, even though you can use them wherever, we decided that the cool thing to kind of contextualize them and tie them all together would be to have an adventuring party, like the same adventuring party, show up in all of the different chapter headers. So you'll see this same group of 4 adventurers, or sometimes only a couple of them or only one of them, but you have this same group that you keep seeing these different places in these different chapter headers. So you get an idea of like how a party is interacting with these places. And it's just kind of neat. It ties the book together because sometimes for a source book, source books can feel a little discombobulated because they cover just, a bunch of different information without necessarily having like a story to tie them together. And so this kind of gives it a little bit of a story. And so here we've got our human cleric and our dwarf barbarian window shopping. I mean, they might actually buy something, but in my experience, it's only ever window shopping. Like any RPG group I've ever been in, when it's like, oh, we're in town, let's go buy some new weapons. Okay, well, I go to the smith shop. Hey, how much is that sword? Oh, 10 gold. Oh, I have like 10 silver to my name. Never mind. I guess I'm not buying anything today. That seems to be like almost every single time how that goes. Like, oh, wait, no. I'm just going to waste the poor weaponsmithy's time because I'm a player character and I don't have that much money. Get these little beard braid details in here. There is a bug crawling across my page. Do you see that? Do you see that? Get out of here. This is what happens because I'm inking at night and it's still basically the summertime and I live in the woods. So bugs manage to get in, and then you turn the desk light on and they're just like, oh yay, a light, here, let me swarm around it. Oh, that's right. I forgot. She's wearing a chain shirt. I'm going to have to come back over and do that in nib pen because I'm not doing chainmail texture with the brush because I don't actually hate myself that much. So we're gonna hold off on some of those details. Usually I do a lot of kind of armor and that stuff with a nib. Her helmet's probably gonna get a nib treatment too, so I'm just gonna do the parts that I want to do with a brush on her and leave the rest for now. Do this strap that's holding this shield on her back. Oop. Oop. And she's wearing kind of like a tabard over her chain shirt, so we'll do that as well. Whoops. Oh, I just knocked into my camera. Like I knocked the stand. What a wreck. Goodness. All right. And I think, other than her other hand, I think most of the rest of that is going to be. Most of the rest of that is going to be done with a nib, which, depending on how far I get this evening, you may get to see. All right. Yeah, the rest of her armor and everything and her weapon are all going to be done with a nib pen. So we'll see if we get that far this evening. I think the only other figure I have left in here at this point is going to be this guy. Pretty much everything else I'm going to come in and do with the nib pens, all of the background elements, armor, all of that stuff. But I still have, tools. Yeah, pretty much anything that's mechanical or straight edged. Stuff that's not organic pretty much all gets done with a nib. But I still have this one last dwarf weaponsmithy back here who's manning the forge. That was me very subtly counting to make sure that I actually had the right number of fingers on his hand there. I have totally accidentally drawn characters with 6 fingers before. especially like when someone's pointing. So it's like, oh yeah, then I just draw all the other fingers, and then you draw 4 other fingers, forgetting that one of them is there already. Doofus. So, once in a while, it's good to just go, does that character have the right number of fingers? And this dwarf is very muscly. Mending the forge is hard work. Oh, I keep bumping the camera with my head. I'm sorry. It's like it's right there. It's like the angle to give you the best view of what I'm doing is where my head is, so I try to compromise, and then I end up either giving you guys not a very great view or bumping the camera with my head. So that's how that goes. I'll come back and do the goggles with nib as well, since they're another inorganic mechanical kind of thing. I'm really getting to the end of what I can do with brush. I mean, you can do anything with brush. I'm getting to the end of what I'm willing to do with a brush. How about that? This guy's got very fancy beard braids. That's how he avoids the singed look. Very fancy braids. I'm not sure how well very fancy braids would really protect you from having your beard burned off by stray forge sparks, but seems to be working for him. All right. The rest of his hair is all pulled back. He's kind of working the bellows, poking at the coals, trying to keep the fire going and going hot like it needs to. boot back here. I'm going to just go ahead and make the soles of his boots black. Whoop. I think I need some more ink. Those lines are looking a little raggedy. That's more like it. It's getting some unintentional dry brushing effect going on there. All right, I think I'm actually going to do this part of the bellows and brush as well, because either side of it, I don't know what the technical terms are, but either side of it are wood, but then the part in the middle is got a fabric covering. I think it'll read better as fabric I guess fabric or leather. It'll read better as a soft bendable material like that if I do it in brush. It has a little bit of a less kind of uniform mechanical looking line. So we'll see if that helps that read better or not. Worth a shot. Okay, so I think that's the end of what I can really do with brush for right now. So now you're going to have to bear with me for a moment. Unless I wanted to make this a very short stream. It is only 9:35. And I usually go for about an hour, so bear with me for a moment while I clean my brush off as well as I can with what I have at hand. The very thorough cleaning will have to wait until the end of the inking session. And now I need to yeah, that's fine, camera. You go ahead and just jump on out of the way. Now I have to kind of move things around. Give me just a second here. Which means I'm also going to have to adjust my camera slightly. Oh, that's not where I want to go. I'm bad at trying to do this mirrored. All right. I'm trying to look at my screen and it's showing it to me not mirrored, actually correct, but it's confusing. All right. So I'm going to start doing some of the inking on some of these other elements back here. I'm going to actually start up here with our cleric, which means I'm going to have to break out the French curve. And I have a fancy new nib holder. It's wood. That makes me so happy. I can't even tell you. Can't even tell you how happy that makes me. To have one less stupid piece of plastic in my life. The design on this one's nice too. It's a little more ergonomic than my old plastic, the standard plastic nib holder is. This is a school nib. I use it for lettering, but also on larger pieces like this, it ends up being kind of my go-to background inking tool. It's got a pretty uniform and nice thin line. You can push it to be a little more bold if you want. It does have enough flexibility that with a decent amount of pressure, you can get a bolder line out of it, but you can get a pretty consistent, thinner line very easily with it. So I like using it. Of course, a nib does not hold as much ink as a brush does, so you'll see me having to pause and take it out of frame for a moment to reload it a lot more frequently. Doesn't deposit as much ink as quickly as a brush does either, but all right, and now my old nemesis, chainmail. And it occurs to me this time that I did this entirely to myself because I designed this party. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll make her wear chainmail. Why did I do this to myself? I hate drawing chainmail. And you can see right now why I hate drawing chainmail. It's really tedious. It's really tedious and takes forever. I mean, when it's done, it looks nice, but why? Why did I do this to myself? At least it's just her sleeves. It's not, and it's like her sleeves. One little bit of her collar right here, and then in some shots she's got like an edge of it sticking out below her tabard. But I think that's really all you see of it. So I guess I could have made it worse for myself, but still, why did I make her wear chainmail? That's like the worst thing I could have done. I'm so foolish. Oops, let's scoot that a little closer down into frame. Right, there we go. Now she's got chainmail on. I still kind of question my own sanity. All right, I'm going to let this area dry a little bit before I come back in and try to do any more work with the French curve, because unlike the side of my hand where if I start to drag it through ink, I will feel, oh, that's wet. I need to very carefully pull my hand up and not make matters worse. A plastic tool like a French curve has no such sensation and will just drag right through the wet ink and make a huge mess. So best to just avoid that altogether and just kind of leave that section to dry for a little bit. When I jump over here, work on these goggles. Do fantasy dwarfs have safety goggles? Sure, why not? Or rather, I thought it made sense, and then the person in charge of approving the art for this project didn't say anything about it, so I guess they were fine with it too. There, now he's got safety goggles. Now we're going to come back over here. I'm not seeing any. There's a tiny bit of glare from that one spot right there on the inside of her sleeve, so I'll just try to be very mindful of that. Not drag my French curve through it. Try to make a nice even curve there. Try to make it look all nice and smooth. Oh, no, I need a little more, just a wee bit more ink on my pen. Not too much, because I don't want to make a disaster. All right, where is my triangle? There's my triangle. And I get the little cylinder there of the handle of her weapon. Getting there on that character. All right, what have we got down here that we can work on while we're waiting on our cleric to dry a little bit more? We can work on this. But you know what, actually, I'm not going to use the straight edge for the handle of the hammer, because the handles of hammers are usually a little bit curved. They're not perfectly straight. So I'm going to probably use a really long, big French curve for that one. Oh, whoa, danger. Danger. Too much ink on my nib. Almost made a disaster with my triangle. Totally lost my train of thought by almost having an ink disaster there. Anyway. Oh, right. Handles of tools are not usually perfectly straight sided. They usually have a little bit of a inward curve to them, so they're easier to grip. So I'll probably use a nice long edged French curve for that. Start getting some of the sides on this sword blank, though, that he's working on. Oop, come on. Oh, don't be like that. My pen nib is playing up for YouTube. So Oh, you're trying to show people that you know what you're doing? Here, let me act foolish. Cleaning off the triangle. So that I don't drag some tacky ink through somewhere I don't intend to. Get back in. Oh, come on. Giving me grief here. All right. I think I should be able to come back up top here and finish up our cleric's helmet. Let's see. What time are we at? We're at time check. It is 9:49, so I've got about 10 minutes left. Get some nice little. All right. I think that's it for these characters. I can move back down here and work on this guy some more. Oh, that did not just happen. The little hook I have on the wall to store these tools on just came flying out of the wall when I took this off. So cool. Now I gotta go find that. But not right now, obviously. Later when I'm done doing this. Yeah, so if you use like a really big French curve like this with a really long side, then these long sides have of them are actually fairly straight. Like right here, barely has any curve. It has any curve connections. It's hiccuping. That's not good. All right, I'm gonna try to press on here. What the hell? What is it doing? Those longer sides, then you get kept on waiting for my glitchy connection, and now my pen's got dried up ink in it. Tisk tisk. Ooh, it's a lovely ink booger. Whoop. Handle of a hammer or other tool where there's only a very subtle curve to it. This sword that he's working on over here as well. Here we go. All right. Well, sorry. Now we're going to tip it upside down. Sorry, that's slightly disorienting. So that I can do the other side of this. Other side of this hammer here. And I'll turn it back right side around. Whee! Hold on tight. Don't get seasick. And I will finish up this hammer. So all these other bits of it, I'm pretty comfortable just freehanding. All right, and we've got sparks, lion. Oh my goodness. So dramatic. So I've only got a couple minutes left, so I'm just going to talk real quick about what this is for again, for anybody who might have missed in the beginning. So this is for a Kickstarter right now that's running for another week and a half now. We're a little over halfway through. It's like a 1-month campaign. And it's called City Builder Platinum Edition. City Builder is this really cool resource that Skirmisher Publishing came out with years ago that's basically just a source book for any type of city. Basically all the places you would find in a city, what players might do there, what they might encounter, and just gives you all these ideas for how to populate a city and how it works and different ways that characters can interact with it so that every time they go to town, they don't have to just go to the tavern. They can do other things while they're there, which is pretty cool. It's a really great resource, and it's good not just for people who are doing, RPG campaigns, but I always recommend it to like writers, like fantasy writers as well. Give your character something to do other than wander around in the woods and then go to the tavern. Because, a lot of it's geared toward game terms, but just works as like a narrative reference as well. On Kickstarter right now, as of the date of me going live here, we've already well surpassed our initial goal. And this piece, I was one of the very first stretch goals in that rather than using all the classic paintings that had been used for chapter headers, that I would create a whole new suite of images for all the chapter headers. So this is for chapter 2, Craftsman Places. So that's what I've been working on lately. I was working on these new chapter headers. I keep pulling the nib out of this thing. I don't know if I just don't have the little collar set right or what the deal is. If anybody has advice for getting the most out of these wooden handles, let me know. I'm still on the learning curve part of using this. But anyway, it's still going for a while. It's a really great book. It's been consistently one of our best sellers, even as is, the way it was published like 10 years ago. So we just decided that Skirmisher decided, well, we're going to make it better. We're going to take one of our best products, and now that we're a company that has a lot more experience and all the people who work for the company have a lot more experience and are just much further along in their own craft, then we're going to make it an even better book. And the campaign's been going really well, so a whole bunch of new content is being added too, not just like my illustrations, but new places written by a bunch of the original authors and some new ones. So that's pretty cool too. There's some really cool places being added that I'm really looking forward to reading the entries for. So definitely worth checking out. I'll put the link in the description of the video once I am done going live and can edit the description. Oh, I should have done the top part of that handle. Whoops. Oh well. I have to get it on another pass. So normally you see me working on Age of Night pages. That's my webcomic when I'm doing these live streams. But since this is something that's present and pressing, and I'm kind of in an area right now on Age of Night pages where I have to mask all my word balloons or hide several panels to not be spoilery, so those I can't really do right now. Kind of gotta wait. So we're just about at the end of the hour. I hope everybody who hung out with me enjoyed. I went from just a penciled drawing to having done the brushwork on all of the figures in this image and gotten a pretty good start on all of the nib, props and backgrounds part of this illustration as well. So I hope everyone enjoyed, and I will see you all next week.